on the Utilities Charges Commission Act, CAP, U17, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, Amendment, Repeal, and Re-Enactment Bill 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Utilities Charges Commission Act, CAP, U17, LFN 2004, Repeal Bill 2021, SB 857, first reading.
Utilities Charges Commission Act, CAP, U17, LFN 2004, Repeal Bill 2021, SB 857, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the swift business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Tolu Lupe Akinremi Odebi on the Federal Vocational and Skill Acquisition Center, OTA, Ogun State Establishment Bill 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal Vocational and Skills Acquisition College, OTA, Ogun State Establishment Bill 2021, SB 865, first reading.
Federal Vocational and Skill Acquisition College, OTA, Ogun State Establishment Bill 2021, SB 865, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the first order of the day is a motion requesting the Senate to consider the request of Mr. President Commander-in-Chief for the confirmation of the nomination of Professor IOC Omotayo, PhD, for appointment as Director General, National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, NIPS, Kuru, Jos, in accordance with the provision of Section 5, Subsection 2 of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies Act 2004. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the purpose of this motion on the order paper is for the request of Mr. President Commander-in-Chief to be referred to the relevant committee for further legislative action. I therefore move that this distinguished senator do consider the request of Mr. President Commander-in-Chief for the confirmation of the nomination of Professor IOC Omotayo, PhD, for appointment as the Director General, National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, NIPS, Kuru, Jos. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion as moved by the leader.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate do consider the request of Mr. President CNC on the confirmation of the nomination of Professor IOC Omotayo, PhD, for appointment as Director General, National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, NIPS, Kuru, Jos, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Port Leader. The request of Mr. President, CNC, is hereby referred to the Committee on Establishment and Public Service Matters for further legislative action to report back within 2 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the second order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the reports of the Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions. In respect of A, petition from Alhaji Haruna Yahaya and 2 others against the Director General, Chief Executive, National Institute for Educational Planning and Administration, Professor Olivier Jakusa, for abandoning his duty post and operating from Abuja and for orchestrated attempt to frustrate and humiliate former principal officers of NIEPA and other gross misconduct. B, petition from Dunobeni R. Perekeme, Esquire, on behalf of Ogboimbiri Community, Southern Ijo Local Government Area of Bayelsa State, against the Nigerian Ajib Oil Company for alleged failure to pay compensation and provide palliatives to the communities affected by the crude oil spillage. C, petition from Mr. Franklin Onyebuchi Ekpe against the Nigerian Institute of Science Laboratory Technology for alleged withdrawal of his appointment letter and refusal by the Institute to document him for assumption of duties as a staff of the Institute since 2018. And D, petition from Olubukola Enaoyo against Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, FMBN, for an alleged and justified termination of her appointment. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Patrick Ayo Akinyelure to move the motion for the Senate to receive and consider the reports of the committee.
Distinguished Senator Patrick Ayo Akinyelure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, my name remains Senator Ayo Akinyelure, representing Ondo Central. Mr. President, I rise to move that the Senate do receive and consider the reports of the Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions in respect of A, petition from Alhaji Haruna Yahaya and 2 others against the Director General, Chief Executive Officer of National Institute of Educational Planning and Administration, NIEPA, Professor Olivier Jakusa, for abandoning his duty post and operating from Abuja, and for orchestrated attempts to frustrate and humiliate former principal officers of NIEPA and others gross misconduct. B, petition from Danobene Aru Perekeme, Esquire, on behalf of Ogboimbiri Community, Southern Ijo Local Government Area of Bayelsa State, against Nigerian Ajib Oil Company, NAOC, for alleged failure to pay compensation and provide palliative to the community affected by the crude oil spillage. C, petition from Mr. Franklin Onyebuchi Ekpe against the Nigerian Institute of Science Laboratory Technology, NISLT, for alleged withdrawal of his appointment letter and refusal by the Institute to document it for assumption of duty as a staff of the Institute since 2018. And finally, Mr. President, D, petition from Olubukola Enaoyo against Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, FMBN, for an alleged unjustified termination of our appointment. I so move, Mr. President.
I need a seconder. Senator Kejef, please, can you second his motion?
Thank you, Mr. President. Okay, Jeff. I represent Benue Northwest. I rise to second the motions assembly moved.
Thank you very much. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate do receive and consider the reports of our Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Chairman, you may lay the reports, please. You may present the report.
Thank you once again, Mr. President. Presentation of a report of Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions in respect of Alhaji Haruna Yahaya and two others against the Director General Chief Executive, National Institute of Education Planning and Administration, NEPA, Professor Oliver Jakusa, for abandoning his duty post and operating from Abuja, and for orchestrated attempts to frustrate and humiliate former principal officers of NEPA and others' gross misconduct. Mr. President, the Senate will recall that on Tuesday, 22nd June 2021, Senator Joaquin Ondo Central rose on order 41 to lay a petition referred to his committee from the office of the President of the Senate and drew the attention of the Senate to a petition from Alhaji Haruna Yahaya and two others against the Director General, Chief Executive, Nigeria Institute of Education Planning and Administration, Professor Oliver Jakusa, for abandoning his duty post and operating from Abuja, for orchestrated attempt to frustrate and humiliate former principal officers of NEPA and other gross misconduct, and urge the Senate to look into the matter. Mr. President, after receiving submission from both the respondents and the petitioners, the committee came with the following findings and observations. As stated in 5.0, observations and findings. After careful studying the presentation made by Mr. Ibrahim Arichekola on behalf of Alhaji Haruna Yahaya and two others, the Director General and Chief Executive of the Institute, Professor Olife Jakusi, and three others, and three other principal officers of the Institute, the committee observes as follows. One, that the National Institute of Educational Planning and Administration, NEPA, was put in place in 1992 by the federal government of Nigeria in collaboration with UNESCO, IEP, Paris, with a mandate to develop a critical mass education sector planners, managers, and administrators, which is take off in the defunct Federal School of Art and Science, Ondo State. Two, that from the inception till date, the Institute had been operating for 31 years without an enabling act of Parliament of National Assembly. Two, that the current substantive Director General and Chief Executive of the Institute, Professor Oliver Jakusa, steps to restructure and fashion out an organogram for the Institute, but after effect of the restructuring led to the abolishment of the offices of some principal officers and supplanting of their juniors over and above their seniors in negation of the rule on seniority in the appointment of a headship of department, sections, and units in the public service. Four, that the idea of relocating the Institute to Abuja was the initiative of the former DGCE of the Institute, which according to him, that the DG was because of the poor accessibility of the area by both national and international stakeholders, and that has hindered the effective and efficient discharge of the mandate of the Institute. And five, that because there was no law or act of National Assembly creating the Institute, the effective and efficient administration of the Institute had been impacted negatively, and thereby creating rancor within the authorities of the Institute. Committee recommendations. Based on the findings above, Mr. President, the committee hereby recommends as follows. One, that the Senate do urge the Director General and Chief Executive of the Institute of the Institute of Educational Planning and Administration, NEPA, to forthwith cancel the idea of relocating the Institute to any other state or Abuja, but to, as a matter of urgency, allow with the Federal Ministry of Education and prepare an establishment bill for the Institute and submit same to the National Assembly for passage. Two, that the Senate do urge the Director General and Chief Executive Officer of the Institute for Educational Planning and Administration, NEPA, to reintroduce those offices he abolished and reinstate the officers who were dismissed or had their appointment terminated due to the fallout of the scrapping of some offices in the institute, and ensure total adherence to the rule of seniority in appointment into positions in accordance with the Public Service Rules, PSR. And finally, number 3, that the Senate do urge the management and staff of the National Institute for Educational Planning Administration, NEPA, to work as a team in realization of its mandate to develop a critical mass of education sector planners, managers, and administrators. I so move, Mr. President.
Any leader of the Senate?
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, this issue actually is one of lack of organizational coherence and institutional wranglings among the operators of a very important educational institutions which is supposed to guide the training and operation of educational administration and management in this country. These institutions, if properly marshaled, is one that could really guide the administration and management in our educational sector. And it is unfortunate that an institution with this kind of promise is being allowed, to enter into this unnecessary kind of institutional incoherence, interpersonal fights. Therefore, the recommendation that the committees have made is not one, given the nature of the issues that are here, it's not one that the Director General by himself actually can resolve. So I think the best way to approach this matter, sir, is to direct the Federal Ministry of Education and the Office of Service of the Head of Service of the Federation to come together to appoint a committee to sit down and seek to really rejig the administration and management of that institution. It is not a matter of removing anybody, but it's a matter of allowing the external rules and regulations of the service, the nature in which institutions are organized, the organogram, the structural hierarchy of the institution itself are organized. Therefore, unless we get the authorities, that is the Office of the Head of Service of the Federation and Federal Ministry of Education, to wade into this issue so that they can bring some operational harmony and organizational and hierarchical coherence to the institution itself. It's only after this kind of thing is resolved that can we do it. Given the way in which the personal relations between the Director General and the operating staff of the institution, the way in which their own personal relations have deteriorated, giving directive to the Director General alone to bring all of them together is going to be counterproductive, because they are not going to obey him and obey the way in which he's going to really reorganize it. I don't think he's capable of doing it. So the authorities in the Ministry of Education and all the Head of Service have to come together so that they can sit down and bring harmony and organizational coherence to these institutions. This is the best way to go about it, instead of giving directives to the Director General to do what we know he cannot do under the prevailing circumstances.
So are you suggesting that the 3 recommendations should be dropped? And then are you coming up with a new recommendation? No, it's okay. You can put it. You can write it for us to. The Deputy Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Aliu Sabi Abdullahi, Niger North. Just to lend support to what the leader said, if you look at the central role we expect education to play, this institute is very important. And unfortunately, for one reason or the other, perhaps it has not received the desired attention it ought to get. So my take is that along the lines suggested by the leader, let's use this opportunity
to see what can be done to reposition this institution so that it can play that critical role, because the mandate it has, and given the fact that it has that strong relationship with UNESCO, I think it will be very important that we take this matter up and ensure that in the long run, what we want is an institution that will actually be able to meet the objective for which it is set up. And that is why the suggestion by him is apt, because within the context of some of these issues, it is the higher authority that ought to play a critical role. The DG by himself cannot, and I think in the report he was talking about the governing council, and even the governing council will definitely want to depend on the, the minister. So we should take interest in this. Perhaps, maybe the committee, our committee, Senate committee on third fund and higher institution or so, if they are the ones responsible, should also be given as part of our recommendation to follow up, so that we're not just giving any resolution here. We have a time frame within which we should get some feedback on what exactly is going to happen. I so submit.
Chairman, you want to say something? Oh, it's okay, Chairman, wait. Deputy Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. All that I wanted to say, it appears you are calling on the chair, because I look at the recommendation as being product of an intense interaction with some key players. Probably the chairman will be handy to explain, particularly the relocation of the institutions into Abuja. This will be very, very important, Mr. President.
Chairman.
President, distinguished colleagues, what informed our recommendation is very simple. This is an institution that has existed for 31 years without no enabling law. And our recommendation is saying that for now, because there is no organogram, the organogram of different types are existing there. And that brought a lot of conflicts to that particular institution. The committee now resolved that the best way is to have an enabling law that will guide their operations. And that's what we recommended, that they should what? They should forward an enabling act to the National Assembly for consideration. If an institution existed and they assessed budget of the Federation for 31 years, and there is no enabling act of Parliament to back their operations, it therefore follows that the first thing to correct is to first of all bring an enabling act. And they have taken this step already, Mr. President. The first reading of the act has been read before the chamber. It has been referred to the Trademark Committee of the Senate for consideration, for second reading and third reading. The second one, this institution has existed in that committee for 31 years. For somebody now to say because of his incapacitation, because we learned that the new MD, the new chief executive, is not health-wise okay, and that's why he started to operate from Abuja. If Mr. President appointed him to go and be the chief executive for DG and chief executive of NIEPA in Ondo town, and he's operating from Abuja here, causing a lot of crisis, we are saying that one should stay. He should go back to where he was appointed to act as DG chief executive. The number 3 is talking about all of them now should work as a team to ensure that there is peace in that institution. Many stakeholders in Ondo, when they were talking about moving this headquarters to Abuja, they have raised objections written to the Minister of Education that it is not practicable. An institution that has existed in Ondo town for 31 years. Before, there were no flight to Abuja, to Ondo, but then there are 2 flights to Ondo. Anybody coming from Tanzania can access Ondo 2 flights. This is what informed our recommendation, Mr. President. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, it's rather unfortunate, DSP, before I make my comments.
Thank you, Mr. President. Obiomo Agege, Delta Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, first, I want to align myself completely, 100% with the submissions of the Leader of the Senate and the support and secondment provided by the Deputy Chief Whip. Mr. President, clearly, listening to and reading the presentation by the chairman of the committee,
Order!
I am battling with words with which to use. The most I can come up with at this time, Mr. President, is that the leadership of the Committee on Ethics and Petition is not at this time emotionally equipped to deal with this very issue. The chairman of the committee, our colleague, our brother from Ondo State, ordinarily, he ought to do everything possible to ensure that this institution remains in Ondo State. And he will be justified in doing so, and he canvassing that position as a senator representing a senatorial district in that state. But Mr. President, going through the submissions made, the challenges posed with respect to relocation or potential or argument for relocation of that institution wasn't one made by the current leadership of that institution. From that report, it's very, very clear that this thing has been in the offing for so long. And therefore, the decision as to whether or not the institution ought to remain or not to remain there cannot be one made by this committee, given the interest. I hate to use the word conflict of interest. That is why I support 100% the position canvassed by the leader of the Senate, that we need a more dispassionate review of the events that have taken place there, most especially in the last 31 years. And that can be only effectively carried out by a leadership of another committee, which in this case I believe is going to be third education and third fund. So having said that, Mr. President, I want to thank our chairman for the job he has done. I was actually troubled when he raised the issue of the bringing before the Senate and enabling legislation. And I was wondering why he, as a senator, representing a district in Ondo State, wouldn't have brought that bill himself, rather than await the Ministry of Education to do so. But I'm glad that he's mentioned, he's drawn our attention to the fact that a bill to that effect has already been introduced and has already cleared the first reading, I believe, awaiting second and third reading. So once again, I thank him and I thank you for the opportunity to speak. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, the DSP. I think my understanding of this is that the issues, the controversial issues here, may not be easily resolved by the management of this institute. I'm more inclined to believe that the top hierarchy of the Ministry of Education, I don't know, to some extent the SGF's office, I don't know, but definitely head of service should be able to come together and decide both the organogram and this is whether the location remains or not. This is a decision that can be taken at that level. And as for bringing a bill here, I think we may not have to wait for that institute, because apparently it doesn't look very organized to bring. And if you say we have a bill already in the system here, we should try to fast track it. But at the moment, I believe that our Committee on Tertiary Institutions should be able to immediately summon the Ministry of Education, two committees actually, tertiary institutions, and our committee on establishment. I think that's where the head of service is. The two committees should be able to bring these agencies together and then work on this, a solution to this. And whatever it is, I think it can be better resolved by a law. Whatever it is that the government wants. Because unless there is a law backing whatever decision, this thing will continue to be a political football. Because definitely politics is coming into it. The law is the only way to resolve this. So I think the hierarchy of the Ministry of Education and head of service should be able to bring some relief to these issues. Certainly this is beyond the management of the institute. So I would suggest that we amend the recommendations. If it is your wish, because you have to do so, if you still feel these recommendations stand, then I have to put them to vote. And I would suggest that we don't, because it may not be necessary. All we are looking for is a solution, a way out for this, so we can now craft another recommendation. Leader, you are raising your hand. Okay, okay.
Next, Mr. President, that is the wish of the Senate. I have no objection. We only need solution. So I will welcome amendments of the recommendations to suit the need of the Senate to resolve this problem permanently, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Leader.
So with your permission and the leave of my colleagues, I read my suggested amendment. I said amend is direct the Federal Ministry of Education and the Office of the Head of Service of the Federation to examine all the challenges being faced by the Institute with a view to providing effective leadership and guidance to the institution in order to reposition it for effective performance and operational coherence. That's one. Number two, in effecting one above, there should be an enabling act to guide the operation of the institution. So the two prayers, the prayers that are there, I'm trying to suggest an amendment to them so that we can have these two prayers to supplant the recommendations. Yes. Yeah, then the two committees, actually this one is not TET one. This one is Education, Planning and Administration. It is an institution that is guided from foreign funding by UNESCO, which is trying to work out the way in which the administration of education and planning of our education.
So which of our committees is supposed to handle that? This is an educational institute and it's supposed to be under the supervision of our committee on tertiary institutions. Yeah. No. We have not reached there yet. This is not compliance committee. This is not compliance committee. So I want us first to drop all these three recommendations as proposed, and then take the two recommendations. No, okay. The two recommendations proposed by the leader. So you are standing down the recommendations, right?
Well, I have stood them down since that is the wish of the Senate, which I am a member. And if these two recommendations go to provide solution, I concur, Mr. President.
You keep on saying we are looking for a solution. These three recommendations you are giving at the moment don't look like they can provide the relief we are seeking. So the wish of the Senate is just to ensure that there is that there's resolution of all the issues in the institute So I think there is no harm in this. And we are asking our committees on tertiary institutions and TED fund and establishment to swing into action immediately to bring the Federal Minister of Education and the Office of the Head of Service to start looking into the ways and means of ensuring that this institute starts to work properly. And then, of course, the second segment of the resolution recommendation by the leader as amended is to ensure that we have a law, because anything we do without a law backing it could still be a problem. Somebody could just come and use his whatever it is and maybe scatter whatever arrangement. So I think we are on the right course. All right. So you can second
the motion as the new recommendation as proposed by the leader. I so second.
Okay. So, distinguished colleagues, there are two new recommendations. We have stood down recommendations 1, 2, 3 as presented to us by the committee, and have in those places two recommendations by the leader. Those in favor of the two recommendations by the leader as he read them, I think, do we need to hear them again? Okay. So those in favor of the two recommendations suggested by the leader, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. So I can see Senator Ibrahim Shekarau is the chairman establishing his here. TED fund is not here. Distinguished Sadona, maybe you start to work on this because his time is of essence. Thank you very much. Leader of the Senate. No. I think he should continue. The second report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Second report is the report of the Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petition in respect of petition from Dunobebe Aru Perekeme, Esquire. On behalf of Ogboinbiri community, Southern Ijo local government area of Bayelsa State, against the Nigerian Agip Oil Company, NAOC, for alleged failure to pay compensation and provide palliative to the communities affected by the crude oil spillage. Mr. President, the background. The Senate will recall on Tuesday, 1st December 2020, Senator Gershom Bassi, Cross River South, rose on Order 41 and drew the attention of the Senate to a petition from his constituent, Dunobene Perekeme Esquire, on behalf of Ogboinbiri community, Southern Ijo local government area of Bayelsa State, against the Nigerian Agip Oil Company, now, for alleged failure to pay compensation and provide palliative to the communities affected by the crude oil spillage, and urge the Senate to look into the matter. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, after careful submission from both written and oral submission from the petitioner and the respondent, the committee came with the following observation and findings. On page 6, observation and findings. After carefully studying the submission and oral presentation of the petitioner, Dunobebe Aru Perekeme Esquire, and respondent Nigerian Agip Oil Company, now Limited, having been provided with full answers to all questions raised by the committee observed as follows. 1. That the incident of oil spillage in Ogboinbiri community actually occurred on 5th June 2020, during the nationwide lockdown, and the incident was reported to the relevant government regulatory agencies. 2. That the impact of the oil spill adversely affected the means of livelihood of the Ogboinbiri community, who were predominantly fishermen, numbers and farmers, and were counting their losses. 3. That the cleanup of the affected area was done without the participation of the host community for them to ascertain whether or not the claim by Nigeria Agip Oil Company, NAOC, that the cause of the spill was a third-party interference. 4. That it was the second JIV that witnessed an inclusive participation. And 5. That the Committee on Ethics, Village and Public Petition have appealed to now to tap out justice with mercy by providing a reasonable sum in money to ameliorate the community's predicament as a result of this bill. Further appeal that remediation of the environment be fully carried out, having fully cleansed up same. Recommendation, Mr. President, that based on the above observations the committee hereby recommends as follows: that the Senate do urge the Nigeria Agip Oil Company Limited to accelerate action and do a comprehensive remediation of the environment within the next 90 days, having earlier clean up same and allow peace to reign in the community henceforth. 2, that the Senate do commend the Nigeria Agip Oil Company Limited for providing some monetary compensation to the Ogboibiri communities as consolation for the hardship dispute are caused to the community. Mr. President, my most new colleagues, on behalf of the Senate Committee on Ethics and Public Petitions, I appreciate the Senate President and leadership of the Senate for openly giving to us to serve in this capacity as the voice of the voiceless Nigeria. I so submit for consideration, Mr. President. Thank you.
Any comments? Okay, we go to the recommendations. Distinguished colleagues, we are considering the report of our Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions on the Southern Ijaw local government area of Bayelsa State against the Nigerian Agip Oil Company for alleged failure to pay compensation. So we'll go to the recommendations now. Recommendation 1, that the Senate do urge the Nigerian Agip Oil Company Limited to accelerate action and do a comprehensive remediation of the environment within the next 90 days, having earlier cleaned up same and allow peace to reign in the community henceforth. Those in favor of this recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 2, that the Senate do commend the Nigerian Agip Oil Company Limited for providing some monetary compensation to the Ogombiri communities as consolation for the hardship the spill had caused to the communities. Chairman, when you say some monetary compensation, who and how will that be determined?
Thank you, Mr. President. We appealed to them, and they said we had asked them to go and meet, and then they came back that some money was given to them, and that they are okay with it, but they needed remediation of the environment.
Recommendation 2 is saying the oil company should provide. Okay, you are commending them. Okay. So they have paid compensation already. Okay. So those in favor of recommendation 2 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader, go ahead and take the next report, please.
Mr. President, the third report is the report of Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions in respect of a petition from Mr. Franklin Oyebuchi Ekpe against the Nigeria Institute of Science Laboratory Technology, NISLT, for alleged withdrawal of his appointment letter and refusal by the Institute to document him for assumption of duty as a staff of the Institute since 2018. Preamble. The Senate will recall that on Tuesday, 9th February 2021, my distinguished self rose on Order 41 to lay petition referred to his committee from the office of the President of the Senate and due the attention of the Senate to a petition from Mr. Franklin Oyebuchi Ekpe against the Nigeria Institute of Science Laboratory Technology for alleged withdrawal of his appointment letter and refusal by the Institute to document him for assumption of duty as a staff of the Institute since 2018, and urge the Senate to look into the matter. In line with this order, the Senate referred this matter to the committee for further legislative action. Mr. President, distinguished senators of Federal Republic of Nigeria, based on response from the respondents and the petitioners, the committee came out with the following observation and findings. After carefully studying the oral and written submission of the petitioner, Mr. Franklin Onyebuchi-Ekpe and the respondent, the Director General of the Nigerian Institute of Science Laboratory Technology, Mr. Yemi H. Badegeshi, the committee observes as follows. 1. That Mr. Franklin Onyebuchi-Ekpe applied for a job in the Nigerian Institute of Science Laboratory Technology, NISLT, in 2017. And after a series of interviews, he was issued an appointment letter by the institute in 2018. That the institute failed to contact Mr. Onyebuchi-Ekpe for documentation, as promised, while his colleague whom it contacted did their documentation and assumed the duty, thereby leaving the petitioner behind. 3. That the petitioner's appointment letter duly issued by the institute was withdrawn by the latter without explanation when the petitioner traveled to the institute's headquarters in Ibadan to find out why he was not contacted for documentation. That the Director General of the institute could neither explain or convince the committee why the petitioner's appointment letter was withdrawn, or how he was left behind without documentation while his colleagues were contacted and subsequently assumed duty. And 5, that the appointment letter issued to Mr. Onyebuchi-Ekpe by the institute was duly signed by the Director General. Therefore, the committee could not see any reason the petitioner should be segregated against, and that the committee concluded that the best way to bring justice to the petitioner was to recommend his immediate assumption of duty and be paid his entitlement from 1st February when his colleague assumed duty. Recommendation. In view of the finding above, the committee hereby recommends as follows. That the Senate do all the Nigerian Institute of Science Laboratory Technology to forthwith release the original copy of the appointment letter to its withdrawn. We withdrew from Mr. Franklin Onyebuchi-Ekpe. Commence without delay the documentation of the petitioner and absorb him into the service of the institute, which effect from 1st February 2019, and pay all salaries and entitlement that accrued to Mr. Franklin Onyebuchi-Ekpe, which effect from 1st February 2019, when he should have assumed duty. Mr. President, I so move for consideration. Thank you.
Any comments? We'll go to the recommendations then. That the Senate do urge the Nigerian Institute of Science Laboratory Technology to forthwith release the original copy of the appointment letter it was due from Mr. Franklin Onyebuchi-Ekpe, commence without delay the documentation of the petitioner and absorb him into the service of the institute with effect from 4th February 2019, and pay all salaries and entitlements that accrue to Mr. Franklin Onyebuchi-Ekpe with effect from 4th February 2019, when he should have assumed duty. Those in favor of this recommendation say aye. Those against say neither say aye. The last report, please.
Finally, Mr. President, the fourth report is the report of Committee on Native and Moving Petitions in respect of the petition from Olubukola Enahowo against Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria for an alleged unjustified termination of her appointment. The Senate will recall that on Wednesday, 15 September 2021, Senator Yoakin Ondo Central rose on Order 41 and presented petition referred to his committee from the office of the Senate. And due the attention of the Senate to a petition from Olubukola Enahowo against Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, FMBN, for alleged unjustified termination of her appointment, and all the Senate to look into the matter. Mr. President, after careful submission of both the respondent and the petitioners, the Committee of Ethics came with the following findings and observations on page 5 of our report. After careful submission the first of the presentation, the committee found as follows. 1. That Olubukola Enahowo was indeed employed as a temporary staff of the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria on 27th October 2011 and served in that capacity for 8 years. That if a Nigerian in her country has spent 8 years of her life in unemployment, though temporary, will it be a justifiable action to terminate her appointment and send her back to the street especially knowing that 8 years of her life would have earned her something better if he had tried her hand something else. That the committee saw that her appointment was temporary, which meant that she could be fired anytime. Yet, 8 years of diligent effort towards improving the bank services could not be overlooked, and accordingly appealed to the managing director MD and the bank to reconsider her plight, adopt her and make her appointment permanent. And four, that the managing director, on hearing the appeal of the committee and the way the matter was being viewed, consented to doing the needful. Recommendation: that based on the observation above, the committee hereby recommend that the managing director should be elected to Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria and is still being commended for tampering justice with mercy and for reabsorbing Olubukowa Enao into a team of diligent workers without further ecubracies. Mr. President, more distinguished colleague, on behalf of the Senate Committee on Ethics, we appreciate the Senate President and leader of the Senate for appointing giving to us to serve in this capacity as the voice of the voiceless Nigeria. I so submit for consideration.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Any comments? We go to the recommendation. The committee hereby recommends that the Managing Director, Chief Executive of Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria and his team be commended for tempering justice with mercy and for observing Olubukola Enao into his team of diligent workers without further encumbrances. Those in favor of this recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the third order of the day is the second reading of the Counterfeit Goods Bill 2021. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this distinguished chamber on Tuesday, 6 July 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Ibikunle Amosun to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Distinguished Senator Ibikunle Amosun.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ibikunle Amosun, I represent Mr. President, permit me to move a motion to present the lead debate on the Counterfeit Goods Bill. I so move.
No, you go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Ibikunle Amosun, I represent Ogun Central. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, it gives me great pleasure to lead the debate on the Counterfeit Goods Bill 2021. The bill was read for the first time in this chamber on 6 July 2021. This bill is a 26-clause legislative proposal. It clearly and directly provides for the prohibition of manufacturing, production, possession, and distribution of counterfeit goods. It simplifies the process of laying complaints by persons interested in protecting goods that are counterfeited and provides an enhanced enforcement capacity. The bill also provides for administration of criminal investigation and seeks to make prosecution a lot less cumbersome so as to provide effective control of counterfeit goods in the country. While the Customs Service is further empowered to check and control imported counterfeit goods, the police is given the power to demand information for efficient crime prevention and prosecution. Counterfeit goods are unauthorized or illegally manufactured, reproduced, altered, or distributed goods. It is also associated with abuse of recognized intellectual property rights, such as trademark, patents, design, or copyright in goods. According to reports, products often counterfeited and pirated include currencies, apparel, consumer electronics, automotive parts, pharmaceutical, foods and drinks, and chemical, among others. Over the years, Nigeria has become a major destination for counterfeit and pirated goods. Nigeria has not only become a major consumer of cheap counterfeit goods, but also has become both target destination and significant transit route to other West African countries. The growing number of counterfeit goods in the country is a major threat and challenge for businesses, consumers, and the economy. In fact, it is difficult to put an exact value or loss occasioned by counterfeiting, as there are no accurate figures on the number of counterfeited goods, type of goods, or the volume of its sales. Indeed, it has been said that as long as there is a demand for a product and consumers are willing to buy it, there will always be counterfeiters selling the products. The existing legal framework, the Trademark Act, provides a legal proprietary right to owners of registered trademark. The only offenses provided under the Act are the offenses of falsification of registration of trademark, falsely representing trademark as registered, and restraints on use of arms in Nigeria. In a nutshell, the Trademark Act provides only a civil enforceable right to trademark infringement, and this has not helped in checking the criminal proliferation of pirated or counterfeit goods. On the other hand, distinguished colleagues, the Criminal Code Act provides for an offense of making or dealing in infringing copied of copyright works with a ridiculous punishment of a fine not exceeding 400 naira only, or 2 months imprisonment. However, the Criminal Code Act and even the Copyright Act are essentially concerned with literary or artistic works only, just as the above-mentioned laws are limited in their scope of application. The Counterfeit Fake Drugs and Unwholesome Processed Foods Miscellaneous Provision Act and the NAFDAC Act are equally restricted to the administration and prohibition of sale and distribution of counterfeit, adulterated, ban of fake substandard or expired drugs, or unwholesome processed foods. Another related law is the Standard Organization Act. While this act prohibits the manufacture and sale of items that does not comply with mandatory industrial standards, counterfeited goods are not captured within its strict definition. Bearing all this in mind, distinguished colleagues, it is clear that previous regulation response to counterfeit goods has likely been limited, restrictive, and weak in enforcement mechanism. Aside from the NAFDAC Act that seeks to protect public health, other counterfeit and pirated products may not necessarily cause any personal harm. Nonetheless, their proliferation may severely damage companies' profitability, innovation, and creativity, and brand value. For government, it may also cause loss of tax revenue. Recently, the Standard Organization of Nigeria sought to mandate importers and manufacturers to create a database of every product in the market. The idea is to ensure an effective prosecution of offenders of manufacturing and sale of substandard and counterfeit goods. The bill seeks to facilitate such prosecution. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, in conclusion, most road accidents in the country have been traced to counterfeit automobile parts, like fake and counterfeited brake parts, discs, tires, batteries, etc., while many household goods, like television sets, electrical and electronic gadgets, electronic cables, light bulbs, etc., are also being counterfeited on a daily basis, a development that this bill seeks to curtail. The Counterfeit Bill 2021 also seeks to introduce measures to further protect owners of trademark against counterfeit of their goods, protect consumers from dangerous counterfeit goods, and ensure that appropriate revenue accrues to government from trademark owners of goods. I therefore urge Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, to support the second reading of this very important bill. Thank you. I so submit.
Distinguished Senator Tolu Odebi.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, my name is Tolu Odebi. I represent the good people of Ogun West. Mr. President, let me first of all commend the sponsor of this bill, Senator Abuja, for bringing forth a very, very important bill. But before I say that, let me also say that it always gladdens my heart when I see the quality of bills that are always being put forth by legislators from Ogun State. And I think it just speaks to the quality of representation we have. Having said that, Mr. President, this bill is a bill that is very apt and appropriate today. I happen to be a member of the Committee on Industry, and it was only last week or so we were talking with the Standard Organization of Nigeria about the proliferation of counterfeit goods in the country. I think this kind of bill that will strengthen and criminalize the importation, the sale of counterfeit goods can only make our economy stronger, because there are a lot of companies and industries that are closing down due to the proliferation of all these counterfeit goods. But more importantly, I think we also have to bear in mind that apart from strengthening these laws, we just signed the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, and it behoves on us that we strengthen our own counterfeit act or law, so that Nigeria does not become a dumping ground for all kinds of counterfeit goods that are going to be brought into the country. I may also say that I think when we realize the amount of debts or sorrow that has occurred due to the counterfeit goods, whether it's medicine, whether it's brake pads, whether all kinds that have occurred in this country, I think it will be quite alarming for all of us to see the need and the importance of this bill. I think that this bill is quite apt. I think definitely we should all support it. I think it can only increase internal production once we strengthen this bill, once we strengthen our laws and we've stopped or minimized the amount of counterfeit goods that come into the country. That can only enhance internal production and thereby create jobs for our citizens. So I strongly support this bill, and I commend the sponsor of this bill. I so support. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Is there anybody against the bill? No. Those in favor that this bill be now read a second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Flag of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to introduce measures aimed against the trade in counterfeit goods so as to further protect owners of trademarks and copyrights against unlawful application and for other matters connected therewith, 2021 SB 768, second reading.
A bill for an act to introduce measures aimed against the trade in counterfeit goods so as to further protect owners of trademarks and copyright against unlawful application and for other matters connected therewith, 2021 second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Trade and Investments to report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fourth order of the day is the second reading of the Institute of Border Studies, Kosubosu, Baruten, Kwara State Establishment Bill 2021. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this distinguished chamber on Thursday, 7th October 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Sadiq Suleiman Umar to move the motion for the bill to be read.
Distinguished Senator Sadiq Suleiman Umar.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, I am Sadiq Suleiman Umar. I represent the good and decent people of Kwara North, and we all are. Mr. President, I rise to lead the debate on a bill for an act to establish the Nigerian Institute of Border Studies, Kosubosu Baruten, Kwara State, 2021 SB 828. Mr. President, my highly distinguished and esteemed colleagues, permit me to lead the debate on this very important bill, which seeks to provide for the establishment of the Institute of Border Studies, Kosubosu Baruten, Kwara State. This bill was read for the first time in this hallowed chamber on Thursday, 17 October 2021. Border studies is an interdisciplinary field that critically examines border and identity understandings found in political and everyday discourses. The Institute's central curriculum as regards border studies will focus on comparative historical and sociological state building, geographical perspectives on changing meanings of borders, critical geopolitics, markets and regional development, and life identities in borderlands. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, it is right to know that though the agencies saddled with the job of policing and monitoring our borders are trying their possible best, there is the need to have a proper institute, a well-organized and thoroughly comprehensive institution that is saddled with teaching personnel and stakeholders involved in the process of manning our borders with adequate real-time knowledge. Amongst its basic functions and objectives, this bill seeks to create a platform which will produce qualified, dedicated, skilled, and professionally trained individuals to teach and lecture personnel involved in the security of the nation's borders using international best practices and skills. Benefits. By the time this institute is established, it will address the security problem of our border communities. It will help to strengthen the nation's already porous borders in line with global standards. It will stimulate public confidence, especially border communities and our national lives. It will also answer the question often posed by foreign investors as to the safety and guarantee of their direct foreign investments in our country. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, this bill, if passed, will help Nigeria to have skilled professionals to deepen border studies. In line with Order 77.3 of the Senate Standing Orders 2015 as amended, a compendium of the financial implications is hereby attached. I urge you all to support the speedy passage of this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Ibikule Amosu.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ibikule Amosu, I represent Ogun Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, first let me commend Senator Umar Sadiq Suleiman for coming up with this bill. Mr. President, because of where this institute will be situated, which is a border town between, I think, Nigeria and the Republic of Benin, and with what is presently happening to us as a nation in Nigeria today, that our borders, most of the crisis we are having, of course, usually starts from our porous borders. So anything that will deepen our knowledge, our understanding, our border communities and our border areas will add value and will assist in protecting not just the people in those border areas, but all of us in the country. That is one plus for me for this bill. The second one, which is very important, is every day we complain about our young able-bodied men, boys and girls, men and women, that doesn't have anything doing. If we now channel their resources to areas like this where they are educated, of course, we will be helping ourselves, because there's a saying that if we do not get our young ones busy, of course, they will get us very busy, which is what is presently happening now. This will afford our people, it's some kind of creating wealth for them, because after this training, they will be in a position to now use those knowledge that they've acquired. One in the area that I've mentioned, in the area of security, two in the area of even developing themselves and even helping the community and helping the state and by extension helping Nigeria. So, Mr. President, without much ado and without not wanting to be repetitive, I want to urge my colleagues that we should support this bill to pass the second reading so that it can appropriately be sent to the respective committee for further consideration and passage. Thank you, Mr. President.
Deputy Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues. My name is Senator Boacha Emmanuel. I represent Taraba South. Mr. President, the bill before us is important to us as a nation, and it is one of those suggestions. It will provide an immediate solution if the bill is passed in good time and taken to third reading and sent for assent. Mr. President, my support for this bill flows from the challenges we are going through now as a nation. The four benefits enumerated by the lead debater are all boiled or settled down on insecurity. In fact, the last one being interest of investors in the country. It can only be possible where there is peace and orderliness, where security of lives and property is guaranteed. We have these multiple challenges of very porous borders across the length and breadth of Nigeria, from the north to the south, to the east and west. Mr. President, when I raised the matter of challenge to our territorial integrity, a journalist took me on after the session and asked whether, do you know where is the borderline of your community? It's a very difficult question, because these borderlines keep shifting from time to time, depending on the interests of those in the border region. A particular farmer can even decide to shift a border of a nation, provided he's in agreement with his neighbor in the other country. If they can just go into agreement, let me take more of that land, because there is no an institution in place that shall oversee this. I've said on and on that the immigrations are not manning our borders sufficiently, and this is no longer news. It's saying the obvious anyway. So I think it's important if we could have an institution like this whose duty is to safeguard or teach our citizens or specific people how to man these borders or understand where our border lines. We've had such controversies in other climes where nations rise to say, we will build even a wall. You know, we've seen that in the Trump government, where he tries to build a wall between the US and Mexico. So defining border lines is a very, very important thing for a nation to do and to know. So I think this bill is good and is coming at the right time, and I call on our colleagues to support this bill, that it will be pursued to a very productive level. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Those in favor that this bill be now read the second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act established the Institute of Border Studies, Kosubusu, Baruten, Kwara State, to provide for teaching, research, instruction, and training of students in border management and for other related matters, 2021, SB 828, second read.
A bill for an act to establish the Institute of Border Studies, Kosobusu, Baruten, Kwara, to provide for teaching, research, instruction, and training of students in border management and for other related matters, 2021, second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Tertiary Institutions and Third Fund to report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fifth order of the day is the second reading of the University of History and Archaeology Establishment Etc. Bill 2021. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this distinguished chamber on Tuesday, 17th March 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Architect Ashiru Oyelola Yisa to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Distinguished Senator Lola Ashiru Yisa.
Mr. President, I'm Senator Ashiru Oyelola Yisa, representing the good people of Kwara State. I stand here to lead debate on establishment of University of History and Archaeology is here in Kwara State.
Where are the copies of the lead debate? Where are the copies of the lead debate? You don't have? Well, that's a setback. How come? I'm afraid without the copies of the lead debate available to the single senators, we may have to wait for the copies to be available. If we can't have them today, then we take the second reading on another legislative day. Okay. Chairman rules. Do we have the copies there? Okay, then we stand it down. Leader of the Senate. Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion that the item on the order paper be stepped down for another day.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that we stand down the consideration of this, the second reading of this bill till another legislative day, say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Leader of the Senate. Leader of the Senate. Don't you have copies? We don't?
Provide 120 copies yesterday of the lead debate, and we made it and sent it to the Rules on Business.
Okay, which copies? Leader of the Senate. Leader of the Senate. What is the copy for Senator Alero's bill available? Huh? Who is responsible for this? Not rules and business. Okay, in that case, we have to go to the next. Leader, we have to go to the next. We can't just stand like this. We'll go to the next. When it is available, we'll look at it. We'll go to the next. Leader, which ones are these? You are talking about 5th, 6th, and 8th order of the day. Which ones are these? Because we stood down University of History. Okay, which next one to stand down is that of
fifth. We have already taken the fourth. No, the 5th order of the day, which is second reading of the University of History and Archaeology. That one we have already taken a decision and stepped it down to another legislative day. Unless we are going to rescind that order. That
leader, we are not rescinding this. So we don't have to go unless we rescind. We'll go, please, let's make progress.
Of the day is the next order of the day is the 6th order of the day, which is the second reading of the Public-Private Partnership Establishment Bill 2021. The distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Wednesday, 6 October 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Muhammad Adamu Aleru to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Distinguished Senator Muhammad Adamu Aleru.
Thank you, Mr. President. My highly distinguished colleagues, lead debate on Public-Private Partnership Regulatory Commission Bill 2021. Mr. President, my name is Muhammad Adamu Aleru. I represent the good people of Kebbi Central. Mr. President, my highly distinguished and esteemed colleagues, permit me to lead the debate on this very important bill which seeks to repeal the Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission Establishment Act 2005 and enact the Public-Private Partnership Regulatory Commission Bill 2021. The bill was read for the first time in this hallowed chamber on Wednesday, 6th of October 2021. The bill deals with overall regulation of public-private partnership, which traverses the entire spectrum of leasing, management of contracts, financing, designing, construction development, operation or maintenance of infrastructure or development project of the federal government. Therefore, having operated the RCRC Act 2005 for 14 years, it has become necessary to strengthen the Commission so as to further attract private sector participation in our infrastructure development. The President, my distinguished colleagues, public-private partnership, PPP, involves collaboration between a government agency and a private sector company that can be used to finance, build, and operate projects such as public transportation networks, parks, convention centers. Financing a project through public-private partnership can allow it to be completed on schedule or make it a possibility in the first place. Public-private partnership often involve tax concessions, protection from liability, or partial ownership rights over the normally public services and property to the public sector or for-profit entities. One of the major challenges affecting the growth of Nigerian economy is the huge deficit in both areas of social and economic infrastructure, like roads, railway, seaports, airports, the provision of affordable health care and medical services or medical facilities, to mention but a few. To bridge this gap, massive investment must be made in the expansion of the country's infrastructure services and beyond the resources and capacity of the government, which has been solely responsible for the provision of such infrastructure. Public-Private Partnership Regulatory Commission Bill 2021 will therefore be very key and central to leverage on private sector investment and capacity to bridge the country's enormous infrastructure gap through an effective framework for public-private partnership in Nigeria. The Public-Private Partnership Regulatory Commission Bill is meant to consolidate and facilitate private sector investment in the provision of new and the rehabilitation and maintenance of existing infrastructure to expedite development processes and ensure efficient and equitable use of the nation's resources. The measure is imperative given the considerable infrastructure deficit in the country. Admittedly, significant resources and efforts have been committed to developing infrastructure by this government. At present, the government is implementing public-private partnership projects through SCOOP, the establishment of Presidential Initiative on Infrastructure Fund, managed by Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, NSIA, and Infraco PLC, tax credit policy, and highway development and management initiative to improve the condition of our infrastructure. The PPP Regulatory Commission Bill will further amplify the government's effort to provide social infrastructure such as roads, medical facilities, and pipe-borne water, etc., etc. Furthermore, the risk-sharing mechanism of PPP framework makes it an effective tool for managing projects and their associated risks, as it allows the transfer of risk to the party best equipped to manage such risks. The PPP also ensures competitiveness and the inclusion of market principles to protect management. By subjecting projects to open market consideration, factors such as barriers to entry, institutional monopoly, racketeering, and are generally reduced to the barest minimum. Mr. President, my highly respected colleagues, the Public-Private Partnership Regulatory Commission Bill will address challenges associated with PPP funding through the establishment of a PPP trust fund that will enable the government to attract investment and attain value for money through the following window. The PPP Project Development and Technical Assistance Fund, which is granted to qualified implementing agencies to cover the expenditure for carrying out all or any of the following. A, development of PPP project, which includes feasibility studies, procurement, documentation, contractual obligations, technical, legal, commercial, and environmental support, and other subsequent activities related to the PPP project. Capacity building across ministries, departments, and agencies of government, and also the general public on PPP operations. C, promotion of programs and PPP projects to national and international investors. D, provide a revolving trust fund that shall enable project development funding, viability gap funding, and the creation of national PPP project libraries. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, more than ever before, Nigeria needs a robust framework that will work to facilitate and meet the country's infrastructure deficit. Government alone cannot meet this enormous task. Likewise, regulating the interaction between government and development partners is imperative to achieving a holistic execution of development projects. This way, a win-win situation between the government and the development stakeholders can be achieved. I appeal to you all, distinguished colleagues, to give this bill the necessary support so as to bring our economy and people up par with international best practices. It is equally important to state that no new body will be created, hence there is no compendium of cost attached, because the Infrastructure Concession and Regulatory Commission is already in place, and the salaries, overhead costs are already included in the 2022 budget proposal, which is currently being considered by the National Assembly. Thank you, my distinguished colleagues.
Senator Rochas Okorocha.
Mr. President of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, distinguished colleagues, I rise to support this all-important bill for the Public-Private Partnership Regulatory Commission. Mr. President, most of our bills on the floor of this Senate is either for regional development or sectional development. But this bill is for our nation's development. Government is business, and business is governance. And this is just the way to go if we have to change the face of our economy to affect positively on the life of the ordinary citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. In most cases, Mr. Senate President, you realize that handlers of our economy make it look like government, everything is about government. But we have realized that government has not been successful in any business outing. Today you may ask of where is Nigerian Railway? It's dead. Where is NEPA? NEPA is still not alive. Where is telecommunication? And all those agencies that government ran on their own as full-time business, none of them have succeeded. It then means that government cannot handle businesses unless there's a private spirit embedded in it. This is why this commission is very key to regulate all the activities of the public-private partnership, to encourage foreign investors, to encourage every Nigerian to participate in the government business. I think this is not one of the bills that requires pleading for support. I think this bill is successful on arrival. I so submit, Mr. President.
Senator Mohammed Sani Musa.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Mohammed Sani Musa, Niger East Senatorial District. I stand to support this bill wholeheartedly because Nigeria is not yet where we are expecting it to be at this period. And ICRC should have done better. I don't see any reason why Nigeria government should be involved in construction of a road to the tune of close to ₦1 trillion. When we have PPP arrangement, the whole world is going more commercial. If you go to China today, all the roads you see, no matter how short or long that road is, you will see a toll gate. And it's managed by an entity. You can hardly find one pothole on that road. You will see the street lights working, everything. When you are talking of critical infrastructure, it is not the business of government. Today, United States is putting a proposal, a bill, a budget for infrastructure. You go and have a look at it, you will see that virtually everything is being facilitated for the private sector to come in, so that the multiplier effect of what they are trying to do is that the economy will be boosted and every American will benefit out of it. What stops us from doing the same thing in Nigeria? There is no better time to bring this bill than now. And I believe that we will all consider it. We have a very tight budget. The sources of income in Nigeria is very limited. The waste in construction is also there. We prefer to continue giving government contracts so that we continue doing annual budget continuously on a project, and that is not good for this country. We should put that money more in education sector. We should put that money more, even the health sector, the education sector. If you give the private sector enabling environment to operate, they will do better. Let's leave the government with its bureaucracies and regulatory functions. Take this business out of it. This is my take. Thank you.
Senator Abraham Abdullah Gobir. Sodono Gobir.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues. I rise to support this very important bill because I know PPP is the only solution to the problems we have in this country. It is a well-known fact that in every country in the world, government does not do everything by itself. Government goes into partnership with private sector to develop the economy of this country, to develop the infrastructure and everything, generally, in a nation. And therefore, if you continue to do the issue of infrastructure concession commission, Nigerian government is going to be shortchanged. Because what is happening is that something that is done at the cost of maybe 10 billion or 20 billion, at the end of the day it will be given the concession to somebody at the cost of maybe just some millions of naira, and that means shortchanging the government. And therefore, private sector is the main driver of any economy in the world. And therefore, the best option is actually to go through this PPP so that we can be able to survive and at the same time succeed. So I support this bill, and I also congratulate the mover, that's Senator Aleru, for bringing this bill. This is the right time for it, and we have to do it this time. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, distinguished colleagues, for the various interventions. Let me say that our country at this point, and indeed at any point, should embark on public-private partnership to ensure that we free our scarce resources for social development, particularly education and health and similar subsectors. I believe that at this point in our history, with very limited resources, we need to encourage the private sector to participate in the development of infrastructure in our country. And of course, this is the practice. But one thing is clear, that we have to provide the environment, a convenient environment, a safe environment for the public and for the private sector to be convinced that their investments will provide the kind of return that they aspire to get, and that there is the legal framework to protect their investments. No matter how hard we wish to encourage the private sector to participate in our economy if the investments do not appear to be fully protected or they feel unsafe, we will be disappointed. So I believe that this is a very important bill, and it is for us in government, both the executive and the legislature, particularly the two arms, to work hard to provide the kind of climate of ease of doing business, security and safety, to promote and protect private sector investment in our country. I believe that Nigeria has the kind of population that will encourage any private sector investment to come. What may be a setback at the moment is the security challenge that we face. But thank God we are doing well and we continue to do so. But this is one bill that all of us in the legislature, and I'm sure even the executive arm of government, would like to see it become a law, and a law that will also be fully implemented for the benefit of our country. So with these remarks, I put the question, those in favor that this bill be now read a second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to repeal the Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission Act 2005 and enact the Public-Private Partnership Regulatory Commission to strengthen and enhance the supervisory role of the Commission and effectively position it in regulating the participation of the public and private sector in financing of construction, development, designing, operation or maintenance of infrastructure, and for related matters, 2021 SB 823, second reading.
A bill for an act to repeal the Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission Act 2005 and enact the Public-Private Partnership Regulatory Commission to strengthen and enhance the supervisory role of the Commission and effectively position it in regulating the participation of the public and private sectors in financing of construction, development, designing, operation, or maintenance of infrastructure, and for related matters 2021 second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Works to report back within 4 weeks. Thank you very much. Leader of the Senate, last.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I rise to a motion that this Senate do suspend and step down the consideration on all other items on our order paper to another legislative day. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate do suspend the consideration of all other items on the order paper till another legislative day, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, having concluded today's proceedings on the order paper, I hereby move that the Senate do adjourn to Tuesday, 30th November 2021 at 10 a.m. prompt. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion that the Senate do adjourn till Tuesday at 10 a.m. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate do adjourn till Tuesday, the 30th day of November 2021 at 10 a.m. from say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate is hereby adjourned till Tuesday, the 30th day of November 2021 at 10 a.m. prompt. Thank you.